Welcome back to our Steven. I'm your host, Steven, and it's been 0 days since I last stubbed my toe. Today, from only being allowed to send info via voice message to a boss that ends up getting herself fired, we've got some great malicious compliance stories, all starting with a story titled, "So you are claiming I defrauded the company by booking an extra 3 minutes? No problem. I worked for a water company for 25 years and was one of their most productive repair crews. That is, until the new manager, let's call him Mr. Numbnuts, started. We had a monthly rota schedule where you were on call for 1 week out of the 4 for emergency repairs out of hours. On the day in question, I started work at 7:30 a.m. on a Friday and finished work at 3:15 a.m. Saturday morning. So a pretty long butt shift. I get to work Tuesday morning and get called into the office by Mr. Numbnuts and informed that according to my vehicle tracker, I'd left the yard at 3:12 a.m. and not 3:15 a.m., which is an attempt to defraud the company. As you can imagine, I was absolutely fuming at this level of bullcrap. I told him that at the time, I was covered in mud and sweat and just wanted to get home after completing a monster shift for the company, and was he genuinely making a crap storm over 3 minutes. He said that he was making me aware that I could be fired for it. Cue malicious compliance. I said that if we're going to be this petty, you can take me off the emergency contact list for extra coverage, and I won't be starting 20 minutes early each day either. I'll now be clocking in at exactly 7:30 a.m. and I shall be heading out at exactly 5:30 p.m. No deviation whatsoever, and you can explain to your boss why productivity is down and you're struggling to get coverage for emergencies. We will then see how important your 3 minutes are when they're costing the company money. Little did I realize at the time, but the guy's job was bonus related and linked to our productivity, which tanked after that because all the other gangs followed my lead, except the brown-nosed gangs, obviously. 3 weeks go by with an absolute crap show and customer service complaints about their work not being carried out in a timely manner. My productivity dropped from 7 jobs per day down to 4, and Mr. Numbnuts gets called in by his bosses to try and explain what the heck is going on. He tried to spin some BS story that I'd turned all the guys against him for no reason and that this was the result. Little did he know that I'd actually trained his boss when he first started with the company 15 years before and wanted to come out and find out what we do and experience how hard the job is. He surprised me by working a full month on the repair crews before going back to the office. Anyhow, the boss calls me in to find out what is really going on, so I explained how he'd used the tracker to monitor what time I'd left the yard, and that I had guesstimated my finish time and overestimated by 3 minutes because I was absolutely knackered after working a shift from heck on call. Conclusion: manager was let go for misuse of the tracking system, as it's only supposed to be used for emergencies and not monitoring, and we had our on-call system reviewed to cut the hours we were having to work. You know, if this was like an office job situation where OP's sitting at a desk for a normal shift and then clocks out like 3-5 minutes early, maybe I can understand them having a stink with that. But when it's a water company and OP's doing emergency repairs and whatnot, what does it mean if they leave 3 minutes earlier than they're expected to? I mean, I guess you can't even really know without knowing the details of the job OP was working on, but how is there even a 3 minutes early? Wouldn't it be more or less, did they get the job done? CPOW official left a comment on the post saying, "I'm not even sure you defrauded by 15 minutes. Most pay tracking systems do 15-minute intervals, so if you worked 1 minute into the 15-minute period, you charge for that. So if I clock out at 2:16, then it's the same as clocking out at 2:30. OP responded to that comment saying, "Our system was 5-minute increments and always backwards to benefit the company. Rounding up was prohibited by their stupidity, but nobody had ever challenged it until he came along." CPOW responded, "Okay, seems backwards and definitely seems illegal to round down." VOP responded, "They've been taken over by a bigger company now, so things are much better as far as pay and compensation go. Although they bought out our bonus scheme, which was a way to almost double our wages, so the lazy jerks benefited because they got a higher wage and a cash advance, and they had never earned any bonus to begin with. Luckily, I was just about to move departments, so my bonus was about to disappear anyway, but I managed to get the $5,000 payment for losing the bonus scheme before moving over to my new job. And speaking of bonus scheme, if you want to earn some more malicious compliance stories here on the channel, it would be amazing if you could hit those like and subscribe buttons down below. Our next story is, never touch your truck again? You got it, neighbor. I posted this on the AITA sub, but many people were saying it's malicious compliance and I posted here too. I, 59-year-old male, live in a major city in Ontario, Canada. I live in a small subdivision and have 5 neighbors total on my street. For the past few years during the winter, when we're getting a lot of snow or a bad storm, as I'm leaving for my overnight shift at around 8 to 9 p.m., I'll put my wife's windshield wipers up on her car and do a quick walk around to my other 5 neighbors and put their windshield wipers up on their cars. Obviously not if they're outside or something, but if it looks like they're in for the night. Many of them forget to do this, as many of them have children and it typically slips their mind, and their wipers will be frozen to their car in the morning. It's just something nice I like to do to look out for my neighbors. They're all always grateful of this and thank me for it. Many of them started doing it too, and there will be nights where I'll forget to put mine and my wife's up, and in the morning, one of the neighbors has done it for us. Anyways, recently, one of our neighbors moved and a new family moved in as of last week. It's a young couple and their 2 young children. The other night, I was leaving for my overnight shift at around 9 p.m. It was snowing really heavy and we were supposed to be getting almost 30 centimeters of snow and it was freezing out. So I put my wife's wipers up and do my usual quick walk around to the other neighbors. I was hesitant when I reached my new neighbor's house, as I've only introduced myself once, but did it anyway. As I was putting the second wiper up on their pickup truck, the husband came charging out of his front door yelling, "Hey, what the freak are you doing to my truck?" I tried to explain to him that I was just putting his wipers up to help him. He continued to scream at me to get the heck off my property and don't touch my crap again. The wife then came out and started yelling at me too. I apologized and started walking away. Some of my other neighbors heard the commotion and came outside to see what was happening. They tried explaining to him too that it's just something that we do. Both of them were not having it. Fast forward to this morning, I'm arriving home from my overnight shift, and as I'm walking in, I see the wife and this couple struggling outside to break the ice off of the windshield wipers of the truck. Guess she was trying to take her kids to school, and the wipers were frozen solid on the car. She sees me and yells over, "Hey there, do you mind giving me a hand, please?" I look over to her and yell back, "No, sorry. Thought I was to never touch your crap again, ma'am," and walked back inside. She yelled back at me, "Wow, Told my wife about this. She thinks I should have helped her because she was just trying to get her kids to school. I disagree, as I was just following what they told me. So I know this is a malicious compliance video, but I think OP's not the jerk here. I think it's every bit deserved. To be fair, them coming out and being all aggressive like, "What are you doing? Don't touch my truck," is understandable, but once they figure out what's going on there, and the other neighbors came over and convened and tried to explain, the temperature should have dropped just like the weather outside. If they wanted to stay heated and hostile and standoffish, sure, but don't expect your neighbor to just randomly help you out when you do need help. I mean, I would have been like, unless you need me to dial 911, good luck. Long Past Due Date left a comment saying, "You reminded her of her and her husband's earlier yelling at you for trying to help, and her response to that reminder is to call you a jerk instead of apologizing and admitting she really does need help? Yeah, these are not nice people." Our next story is, HR training leads me to getting paid extra. Another post reminded me of this story, and I thought I would share. I work for a major grocery chain. For the most part, they're locked in on following labor laws properly, but every once in a while, they don't know what they're talking about. Before this job, I'd been GM of a high-volume brew pub, and before that, I was GM of a 14-screen cinema. So I also know labor laws pretty well, as both my previous jobs were drowning in employee relations. A while back, we had a mandatory training for leadership about proper call-out procedures for our teams. In the training, our regional HR asked all department managers, "What do you do if they text you?" I said, "Ignore the text." HR replied, "No, you need to tell them to call out on our call-out line." Let them know that they need to leave their name, employee ID, and their shift. I said, do I have to? HR says yes. I respond, okay, but would you email us this information after the class? They did. About 3 months later, I had a new employee somehow get my phone number, which bothered me, but that's another story, and text me that they couldn't make it in that day. I text back, call the call-out line, leave your name, employee ID, and shift. The next day when I was at work, I put in a timekeeper request for an hour of labor. This also happened on a Wednesday in a week where Wednesday was my only day off. Where I live, if you work even a single minute off the clock, the company is obligated to pay you for that hour. In addition, because I was scheduled 6 days already, that counted as another day of work. So my entire Sunday shift was time and a half, as it was 7 days in a row during the full Monday to Sunday work week. About a week later, I was called into HR to discuss what they claimed was me abusing the system, and they wanted to write me up for it because that one text message resulted in $200 of extra money on my paycheck. $40 an hour wage, so 8 hours at time and a half is $160 plus the $40 on Wednesday. I let them know that they were the ones who told me to work on my time off and that if they wanted to punish me for it, and they would pay a heck of a lot more. I then reminded them of the email they sent, telling us in detail what we were to do if an employee texted us to call out. I told them that I value my work-life balance and even a minute of work is still work, and I expected to be paid for each moment of work I do. They said, okay, I'll have to call the director of HR and discuss this, but we will get back to you. They never got back to me. But my paycheck was straight for the period, and a week later, they sent out a follow-up email telling leadership to let their teams know that they weren't to text the managers off the clock, and that if an issue arises, they should call the store and the store could decide if it was important enough to contact us on our days off. My time is my time, and I'm getting paid for it. Thankfully, for them at least, they never tried to retaliate over it. Sad for me, as I wasn't bluffing when I said I'm not afraid to talk to a lawyer. Would have been a good payout. Gotta be honest, OP's currently kind of having me do that little thing where you tuck the hair back behind your ear, maybe do the little lip bite. You know, there's just something great about somebody who knows how exactly the laws where they live work and can exercise them to protect themselves so effectively. Please, OP, tell me more about how you totally pulled one over on HR. Traditional Apple 238 left a comment saying, Aussie? OP responded, American, in a state with actual worker protection laws. Mary JJ replied, I didn't know there were any. Our next story is, support kept using voice messages, so I gave them a taste of their own medicine. Hi, I'm a 35-year-old IT manager for a small family-run sales company. We recently moved from a very old ERP to a new platform that is modern, intuitive, and much more efficient. Technically, it is a great product. The problem is support. Their in-app support is fairly fast, but they reply almost only using voice messages. I stopped listening to voice notes years ago because they break focus and force you to replay things just to get basic info. Text lets me read, search, and solve. Audio just slows everything down. I asked them many times to stop using audio and even told them that I was hearing impaired. They ignored it. Yesterday, the point of sale systems were not communicating with the local server, even though they were all online. I did my part and contacted support because it was beyond my pay grade. As usual, the first reply was an audio message. When they asked for the remote access ID, I sent it back as audio. Then, I sent the password as audio too. Suddenly, they switched to text. They asked for screenshots. They then needed the admin credentials, and I sent the long, messy password with numbers, uppercase and lowercase letters, via audio. From that point on, everything was done in text, including today's follow-up. Turns out they know exactly how annoying voice messages are, they just do not care until it becomes their problem. I'll say, this is kind of why I prefer texting too. Voice messages for a lot of people are way more convenient. I mean, to be honest, a lot of times when I send a text, I'm actually doing voice to text because I can't be bothered to type it all out. But basically for me, I read super quick. So if I have a text, I can just get through it, skim through it, know all I need to know. With a voice message, you gotta sit through it. I do really appreciate the apps that at least attempt transcription, but then you end up in a situation like one of the stories I read the other week, where somebody was describing how they read the transcription from a voicemail and found out that grandma died. When in reality, when listening to the actual message, it was about how grandma really enjoyed her birthday celebration. Equal Purple left a comment saying, "The password is PA2S, SS and not 2 and S, WO, the W is caps, and the A too. Oh, I realized I said O, but I don't mean the letter O. Crap, I said it again. Let me start over." Our next story is, you said you wanted an ad with only one color. You got it, buddy. This happened years ago in my past life as a graphic designer, but I still think about it to this day. I was 22 and fresh out of college with my graphic design degree. My first gig was at an advertising company. We mainly did those really horrible print car ads that you got in your mailbox and immediately threw in the trash. You know the ones, only one font and it's huge and it's screaming at you. Every inch of space has a picture of a car, cramming 50 cars into a 7x5-inch area. Trash. Fresh out of school, I foolishly made suggestions on how to make actual ads and not hot garbage, but it was made clear to me very quickly and very aggressively that they wanted trash. So I complied. Now, we had one client who was the client. He brought in the most money and bought the most trash ads from us. And he was also very specific on just how bad his ad should look. Font was impact on all ads, and it was filled into every corner of the paper. On one ad, I remember him demanding I squeeze over 100 cars into a single space. It legit looked like a Magic Eye poster by the time it went to print. I dealt with that guy and his unreasonable requests for over a year. Well, the guy amazingly got worse, started telling me which colors I could or couldn't use, and one by one, the colors dropped out, and eventually, I had enough. After he said I could no longer use orange, I said, "Just to confirm, you do not like and do not want me to use red, orange, yellow, green, purple, pink, brown, white, or black?" He confirmed. I said, "Okay." The only color left was blue, so I spent hours taking all the cars, all the fonts, all the text, and all design elements and making them all the exact same blue. No shading, no highlights, just a flat blue. The end result was one giant flat blue square, like someone took a paint roller over it. Now, I could have made a blue square in 2 seconds, but I spent hours using all the elements he told me to use to cover my butt. Because when we sent that blue square to proof, the client of course blew up, called me screaming. I replied calmly that he told me the only color I could use was blue. I used all the pictures and elements he asked for and did exactly what he wanted and made them blue. Our calls were recorded, so I didn't get in any trouble with my boss, and I got to waste several more hours remaking the same ad, but with the original car pictures and elements. It was a really fun day. About 10 years ago, I did a little bit of my own graphic design, and really I found out the hard way it really wasn't for me. It seems like the kind of thing that I feel was fun looking at it from the outside in, but when you're in there and you have to deal with the clients and you have to do everything to their specification, whether good or bad, it goes from fun and interesting to really annoying very quickly. I remember one of the tasks we were given was to design the cover of a company's annual report. Okay, fair enough, simple enough. Get the logo, get the basic brand work, they have some supplied stock photos we could use. And then you find out there's very specific design specifications that you can and can't do. You have to use only 3 colors, and those have to be the exact right shade dialed into Photoshop. For the logos, there were very specific restrictions on where on the page the logo could be. It could only be equidistant from either the top right or bottom right of the page, and no more than like 1/4 of an inch either way away from the edge of the page. You couldn't do something like add a drop shadow to the text without checking in with their team. You couldn't do something like add a light transparent box to the front that made it look way better because it doesn't meet brand specifications. I remember adding this really nice swooping design where on the top half you could see the photos of the employees and on the bottom it was the solid color and annual report was on there. No, had to redo the whole thing. Wasn't a brand specification. I was like, I get it, but this also just sucks. Juntar left a comment on the post saying, "Did the client learn anything from this? Did you get to charge him for the blue and the final ad?" If I were your manager, I would have stopped in and said to the client, "Just to be clear, you want to commission another ad with fewer limitations on my team's creativity? Because you're a valued customer, I'll eat the cost for the second ad for free this time." OP responded, "I don't know financially what happened. We had a call team of handlers that dealt with 90% of the direct calls to clients, and they handled payment and specifics like how many ad spots were they buying and for how long, etc. The only time I talked to the client was to get their take on what they wanted the ad to look like. With this particular client, I'm sure there's no way we charged him twice, especially since my little joke ad never even had proofs printed. We wasted no paper, ink, etc. Only thing was my time, and I was salary." Our next story is asking the question you told me you wanted. Work upgraded to a newer version of a document saving/sharing platform for security reasons. Totally understand that since the old one was 25 years old. Our team knew this was happening, and since nobody asked for any input on viewing and testing, we all assumed they pulled history records to see what everyone used and would mirror the new platform based on that. New platform rolls out with no announcement, and big shock, it was missing a lot of the things we need to do our job. I took it upon myself to compile a list of things we couldn't do on the new system and emailed the project manager of the platform asking how we could communicate the things needed to be fixed. He sets up a call which includes a couple of his coders, and I invite my supervisor and a fellow team member to join. Project manager is not friendly, not being understanding or helpful. He explains that this was tested before it rolled out, and I said, "Who tested this? Because our team uses this multiple times a day and we weren't contacted at all. It's missing a lot of functions that are basic things. How could all this be overlooked if it was tested?" Project manager got ticked. Like you could hear the smoke coming out of his ears ticked. He said that if we saw anything that needed correcting or had questions to use the Ask Help link and send an email. Then he logged off the Teams call along with his coders. Soup, fellow team member, and I stayed on and decided that we would bring up these things one email at a time. We took the list of questions and problems and divided them between all of our team members, who then used the request help link to notify that team of one thing per day times 5 people. So 5 emails a day each with a different issue or question. The response was always that they were going to research and get back to us. So after a week of no response to the research, we added a second email per day of following up, asking when they would have an answer to our original issue. Halfway through the second week, my supervisor gets an email from project manager stating that his team is getting a lot of questions and is having difficulty getting through their workload because of them. He had CC'd his boss in on the email. This is where my soup hit reply all. She noted that we tried to give him a list of things that we were seeing on a call weeks ago that included his coders. Instead of taking the listed issues, we were told to use the Ask Help link and send emails on things, which is exactly what we did. Project manager's boss stepped in and asked for a complete list of things they needed to correct or add, and we never heard from project manager again. This one feels almost too straightforward in how that project manager utterly failed. It's like if your job was eating soup and they said, "Okay, we're going to upgrade your utensils. Here is your brand new shiny fork. Let us know if we have any issues via email only." Our next story is parked for 30 minutes longer than I paid for. I went to a downtown restaurant last year, and as in many downtown areas, street parking is hard to find. I ended up parking in a lot and paid for 2 hours. I can't quite remember how much it was, but I'm gonna guess it was about $30. I ended up overstaying my allotted time by 30 minutes. No big deal, I thought. About a week later, I get a bill from the company that owns the lot. They wanted to charge me $80 for the 30 minutes. I tried calling to dispute the charge, and while they did give me $20 off, I was still on the hook for $60 for a half an hour of parking. So I went to my bank account and scheduled 30 monthly payments of $2, figuring that if they're going to charge me, I would create the hassle of them having to process a $2 check every month. I guess they decided that it wasn't worth it, because today, after only 10 payments, I got the 11th check back in the mail with a note that my account has been paid in full. They wrote off $40 just to not have to process my $2 checks anymore. So all I'm gonna say is, if I found out that this was the case and I had to pay $80 or $60 for overstaying 30 minutes, I would be wasting serious amounts of time trying to make it clear to anyone I could, do not use that parking lot at any cost if you can avoid it. D. McNeil left a comment saying, "That is a crazy amount for 30 minutes. Opie responded, "That's what I thought too." I also filed a complaint with the Attorney General. Our next story is, no one can fire my boss, so she does it herself. This isn't my story, but I was able to witness it in all its glory because I used to work for one of the people involved. Years ago, I used to work at a state government agency where my boss was a political appointee. Her mom was a bigwig in our governor's party who wrangled a political appointment for her daughter, which meant that she had some clout behind her. Let's call her Shannon. Shannon was not good at her job at all. She was frequently out of the office for meetings. For example, 2-hour lunches, coffee with friends, a bit of shopping. She was also a bully and a tyrant. She bullied her staff and would hold the threat of firing over everyone's heads to get them to do what she wanted. She wasn't a micromanager because she was never around enough to actually micromanage anything. And she was widely disliked throughout the entire building. This was a large agency, so to have a building where almost everyone disliked you took a lot of work. The problem is that, as a political appointee, she was untouchable. The people who had had the power to fire her couldn't because of her family. Even the number 3 person in the agency couldn't do it, and he was a political appointee as well. But after a year of mystery meetings and time out of the office, her excuses were catching up to her. The agency director removed her from her job and put her in charge of special projects. Anyone who's worked in a corporate job knows that people get put in charge of special projects because they were largely incapable of doing their previous job. They didn't get fired, but they no longer had any power. This was Shannon's case. For a while, she seemed to get the message. She shaped up, didn't have any more mystery meetings, didn't disappear from the building for 2 hours, and treated people somewhat nicely. Of course, it didn't last, and Shannon returned to her old ways. Around that time, we got a new assistant director. We'll call her Trisha, who was also a political appointee. She was the number 2 person in the whole agency, and she was great to work for. She was very serious about her job. She had access to Shannon's electronic calendar and saw what Shannon had been up to. She then cross-checked the security logs to see when Shannon was in and out of the building. After her brief investigation, Trisha emailed Shannon with a list of dates and said, "Can you tell me more about these different meetings you were having and why they took so long?" I'm paraphrasing. Well, Shannon wasn't having any of that. How dare Trisha call her character into question? This was an outrage. It was so outrageous, in fact, that Shannon wrote a resignation letter and slammed it down on Trisha's desk. That'll show her. After a few hours, Shannon had time to think about what she had done. She remembered that she had a 1-year-old at home. She also remembered that her husband was an unskilled truck driver who made $8 an hour. Edit. He was a local delivery driver for a construction firm, not a CDL driver. And she remembered that she was the primary breadwinner for her family. She went back, hat in hand, and apologized for her attitude. She said she was willing to try harder, and she asked Trisha if she could please possibly have her letter back. Pretty please? Trisha said, "Oh, I'm sorry, you're too late. I already processed the letter and sent it off to HR. I'm afraid I can't undo that." Do you remember in the movie The Incredibles when Mr. Incredible fought the giant ball with legs? The ball was so indestructible and powerful, the only thing that could beat it was itself? This was that moment. The previously untouchable political appointee had just been fired by the only political appointee who had that power, herself. And rather than protect her or do her a solid, Trisha would not undo her self-termination. She just let Shannon be her own undoing. When news of Shannon's self-firing raced through the building, you could hear the cries of, "What? Are you serious?" followed by the howls of laughter as each new person heard the story. Shannon was out, and everyone who had to deal with her was much happier than they had ever been in that job. To be fair, letting Shannon go is clearly the right choice here, because if they're the kind of person that is not going to think things through enough to the point where they will fire themselves from their nepotism-gained, irreplaceable position, you don't want that person working for your company. You don't want that person being able to make any decisions. Gibbles left a comment saying, "If she was a political appointee, why was she desperate for the income? I thought those people were generally rich and connected." Opie responded, "Her mom was the one with the money. She was a big fundraiser for the governor. But good thing for you guys, if you don't want to hang up your hat and quit now, you can check out some more malicious compliance stories by checking out the video on the left of the screen right now. Or if you missed and wanted to check out my latest video, that's on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.